You need a teaching philosophy, don't you? This is a video I tried to shoot 6 or 7 weeks ago, and I spent a whole day working on it, and it just wouldn't work out for me. I kept trying to articulate what my teaching philosophy was, and I couldn't bring it down into one of those short, pithy little statements, one of those little elevator pitches that you really like to hear. And I was disappointed and I felt like a failure, and so I gave up, I shelved it. I decided that I would come back and try again in a few weeks or a few months, and here I am. One of the things I did while I was on hiatus from this project, or at least on hiatus from shooting the video, was that I went to different teachers I knew in my own building and I asked them what their teaching philosophies were. And I also got on YouTube and I tried to do research on teaching philosophies and pedagogical philosophies. And in talking to other teachers, I only ran into two who gave me really good, concise, on demand teaching philosophies right off the cuff. Everyone else kind of had their eyes widen a little bit and they backed away just a little bit. And they said, "Oh, I don't have one," or "I haven't thought about that since college." The two who did seem to have their philosophies at their fingertips were a social studies teacher and an English teacher. The social studies teacher said, "inquiry based learning." And then he kind of did a mic drop walk off. And you could just tell that that's how he ran his class, and he is one of the best teachers in the building. The English teacher said, high expectations, high warmth. And I think you can tell just from hearing these two teaching philosophies that these are two very good teachers. And I can tell you, these are the kinds of teachers that you would want your kids to have. The YouTube philosophies I ran into were mostly disappointing. It seemed that most of the videos about teaching philosophy were aimed at giving students of education in college pointers for how to answer a question in college classes about teaching philosophy, or they were videos designed to help teachers looking for jobs answer job interview questions. And in both cases, it didn't seem like the the recipients of the information were really interested in rooting around, doing the soul searching, and figuring out what their teaching philosophies really were. Rather, it seemed that people wanted to figure out what other people wanted to hear and then tell them those things. And so I saw advice like look up the school's slogan that you want to work for, look up the school's mission statement that you want to work for, take out keywords and arrange your mission statement or your teaching philosophy using the keywords from the mission statement you find. And while that might help someone get a job, and while I wouldn't begrudge anyone trying to get a job, if your teaching philosophy is your guiding light in dark times, I don't know that one that you've cobbled together just because it's one that other people want to hear, I don't know if that's going to be effective for you. And I kind of think, I truly think, I deeply think that your teaching philosophy should be something genuine and authentic and something rooted in who you are and why you're in the building, why you're in front of these kids. I said earlier that the teaching philosophies of the two teachers who had their philosophies just right off the cuff um, were from two of the very best teachers. Does that mean that the teachers who didn't have teaching philosophies for me weren't good teachers and that you wouldn't want your kids to be in their classes? No, that's not the case at all. A lot of them were other really great, outstanding teachers, some of the best teachers in the building, teachers who taught for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, teachers who were building leaders, department leaders, advanced placement teachers, teachers who kids voted for to speak at graduation, teachers that kids voted as best teachers in the building year in and year out. And when I thought about this in retrospect, I realized that it might not be that these teachers didn't have teaching philosophies, but rather maybe their teaching philosophies were so personal that they just didn't want to share them. Or maybe their teaching philosophies were so broad, so manifold, so deeply intertwined that me stopping them in the hallway didn't give them the kind of time and opportunity to fully unearth and unpack everything that went into their personal teaching philosophies. In this video, a bit of a ramble, I'm afraid, I thought I might talk about why I think you need a teaching philosophy. I thought I might talk about the differences between short teaching philosophies and broader, more complex teaching philosophies. And I thought I would share my teaching philosophy, which, when I really thought about it and tried to break it down, kind of broke down into my why, my what, my how, and my who. So first of all, why do I think you even need a teaching philosophy? I think you need a teaching philosophy because your teaching philosophy is your foundation. It's your groundwork. It's your home base that you come back to when things get hard or weird or confusing. It's your why. It's your raison d'etre. It's, I hope I pronounced the French right. It's the thing that after a hard day or a hard week or a hard month or a hard semester gives you the strength to keep going in this profession, which frankly is a difficult profession which seems to be getting harder every year. With regard to those pithy, brief, elevator pitch philosophies, I like them. I don't have a problem with them. I'm envious of people who can come up with one on their own, and I just couldn't do it. The best I could come up with was that I try not to waste kids' time, or that I thought engagement was paramount, or that I pile up small victories. And I thought that these three separate elevator pitch teaching philosophies kind of are things that I say when people ask me what my pedagogical philosophy is, but none of them alone really encompasses all I want to do. And I had to dig deeper. If you want to come up with an elevator pitch, brief teaching philosophy, I think it's a worthwhile exercise. I don't know that it's entirely necessary. I think that going with classics is not a bad way to go. I wrote down a number. I'm going to look off to the side and read a few of them. I think that philosophies like all kids can learn, or learning should be fun, or I'm here to prepare kids for the 21st century, or student voice matters. I think these are very good philosophies. If you want to root your philosophy in one of them, children need safe and accepting environments where they can feel free to make mistakes, or an educated populace is a requirement for a working democracy. Public education is patriotic. I think these are all good seeds. They're all good kernels. They're all things that your teaching philosophy could go grow from. I don't know that your teaching philosophy needs to be original. I think that um, the cliched ones are cliched for a reason, and I think it's because they're valuable. And if yours is just like a lot of other people's, I think it's okay. For me, as a high school English teacher who came to the profession non-traditionally through a backdoor transition program, who had never grown up thinking that I would be a high school English teacher, I found that having a why became really important. My why is just simply that reading matters and literature matters, and in a very founding fathers kind of way, I really do believe that a literate and readerly populace is essential for a functional democracy. And if we let our population sink into illiteracy and failure and refusal to read, then we're going to fail as a country. My why also has to do with the good for individual students that reading does. And I think that I'm here to teach English to my students first to help them grow as individuals and be happy in their personal lives. Second, to be productive and constructive, collaborative citizens in our country. And third, so that they can enjoy further academic and professional success beyond my high school classroom, beyond walking across that graduation stage and leaving high school. My what is also very simple. I've already addressed this in another video, but my what is that I want to produce students who can think and collaborate. And I think that the best way to do this is to help them learn to read, write, and speak with one another. And so, my goal in English class is always to encourage thinking and collaboration through reading, writing, and speaking, and exploring all the different and deep and most effective ways that we can try and do that with our students. My how is more intricate and layered. It has 4 steps that break down a few different ways. And first and foremost, my how for teaching is that I believe that engagement is paramount. And that means that I try and get and keep my students' attention as early as possible and for as long as possible. And when I sense that my students' stamina is running out, I don't necessarily try and stretch them beyond their limits. I might actually just try and close down my lesson. I might try and reinforce what I've taught them for the day, and I might let them rest at the end of class. Throughout the school year, I might try and stretch their stamina, but I'm not necessarily a bell to bell teacher because I don't know that teaching bell to bell is always the best thing for my students' attention or my students' engagement or my students believing in the system. I don't want them to think that they're just in my classroom to be kept busy for 85 minutes. I want them to know that we have goals that are worthwhile goals and that when we accomplish them, we can celebrate and even rest. The second part of my how is that classroom management is a function of three things. And for me, classroom management is a function of creating an environment where students learn, where students wouldn't think of misbehaving or falling off task because that's just not what they do there. The second part of my classroom management function is that classroom management is a function of building relationships where I show my students that I'm there for their benefit and that I actually care about them and their futures. The third portion of my classroom management belief system is that I believe classroom management is a function of presenting students with meaningful and engaging material that keeps them from becoming distracted and straying off task and into trouble. After my how for engagement and my how for classroom management, the third portion of my how belief system has to do with time. I believe that though we might plan for good days, we can't always count on having them. And while we might hope to teach a lesson well the first time, we can't always count on all our students learning it well the first time. And so I believe that the school year is long, that while our students are sprinting every day, we are pacing ourselves and taking part in a marathon. And what happens in August and September and October is really only the preseason for a very long season of learning. And what really matters is what the students come away with in March, April, and May when we can demonstrate tremendous growth by piling up small victory after small victory after small victory, by learning, by relearning, by learning, by reinforcing. Finally, in my how belief system, I believe that my students should be presented with material that is meaningful and high quality. I don't believe in giving my students low quality junk food material just to fill their time, just to pass the days, just to fit the specific skill requirements that the curriculum has, but rather I want to find the best texts that are the best models for my students so that they can become the best writers they can be and become the most constructive, critical, and analytical thinkers that they can be. Having spoken about my why, my what, and my how of my pedagogical belief system, the final portion is my who. And the who is who I am, and my who is I would like to be as genuine with my students as possible and as authentic with my students as possible. And that doesn't mean I show up in class the way I show up at home in front of my family or the way I show up on the weekends in front of my friends, but I come and I bring my most authentic, readerly, teacherly, educated, academic self to the classroom, and I'm as honest with my students as I can be in that context. As I said earlier, this has been a bit of a ramble. I don't know if it's as tightly organized as I wanted it to be. It's something I think I might try and revisit sometime down the road. It's a video I wanted to shoot early in this process of shooting videos because I felt it would lay groundwork for other videos that I wanted to shoot. And I also thought sometimes some of the best videos I see on YouTube are videos that don't necessarily feel like they complete the circle all the way or complete the thought the other all of the way. Videos where the speaker provokes thought without absolutely answering the question. And that's what I wanted to do today. If you'd like to give your thoughts in the comments below, I'd love to see them. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week.